They say the Atlantic doesn't bow to kings, but they haven't met the woman who commands it. History tried to drown her name. Tonight, you'll find out why. If you watched this part, then kindly subscribe, like, and drop a review. Grace O'Malley sailed to London in 1593. She was approximately 63 years old. She had spent most of her life on the water. She had never been to England. She spoke no England. She was walking into the court of a queen who had the power to have her executed before sunset. Multiple accounts describe her as appearing before Elizabeth, dressed not in English court fashion, but in Irish chieftain's clothing, which was in English eyes almost an act of aggression in itself. Elizabeth received foreign dignitaries in specific ceremonial contexts, designed to communicate hierarchy, submission, and English superiority. Grace apparently did not receive that particular communication, or she received it perfectly well, and just didn't care. There are several accounts of this meeting, and they agreed on the essentials. It was extraordinary. Grace did not bow, or at least she did not bow deeply enough, and when corrected by a courtier, she apparently explained that she did not recognize Elizabeth as a queen. She was a chieftain of Ireland, she said. She answered to Irish law. Elizabeth spoke to her in Latin, the only language they shared. This is one of history's strange attitudes. Two 60-year-old women, rulers of different empires, negotiating in a deadland language in a room full of bewildered men. One account says that during the meeting, Grace was given a linen handkerchief, a courtly gesture. She used it and then threw it into the fire. An attendant moved to stop her. Grace reportedly informed then that in Ireland, used handkerchiefs were not kept. Elizabeth, by most accounts, found this hilarious. But what happened next was not funny. It was remarkable. Elizabeth agreed in principle to almost every one of Grace's requests. Sebos would be released. Bingham's most aggressive actions against Grace's territories would be investigated. Grace would be recognized as a chieftain with certain rights of governance. In exchange, Grace offered to use her fleet against Elizabeth's enemy, the Spanish, the rebel chieftains who threatened English interests. She was, in effect, offering to become a privateer for the crown. Why did Elizabeth agree? Historians argue about this, but here is what we know. Elizabeth had spent 40 years managing men who told her what they thought she wanted to hear and then did whatever they liked. She was perhaps simply struck by a woman who told her exactly what she wanted and meant every word of it. Here is where the story turns bitter. Bingham was back in Connaught within months, and he ignored the Queen's instructions almost completely. Sebot was released, but Grace's other conditions were never fully honored. The English administration in Ireland was too far beyond anyone's full control, even the Queen's, to simply comply. Grace returned to Ireland to find that her meeting with Elizabeth had changed almost nothing on the ground. She went back to the sea. The 9 Years' War, which broke out in 1593 and ran to 1603, was the last great Irish resistance to English rule, and it failed. Cornwall and O'Donnell were brilliant commanders, but the Spanish support they had been promised arrived too late and in the wrong place, and the England ground the rebellion down with overwhelming resources. Grace O'Malley was in her late 60s. She was still sailing. Records suggest she was still active in Claw Bay as late as 1601. Her son, Thibault's calculating survival with brutal clarity, ultimately sided with the English. It would eventually be made Viscount Mayo by the English crown. The boy, born on a galley, becoming English nobility. Grace lived to see it begin. We did not know what she thought of it. She left no diary, no letters beyond the one to Elizabeth survive. We have only the water and the stone and the accounts of people who mostly wanted to describe her as a problem to be solved. By the end of the 9 Years' War, the war that had made Granuaile possible had ceased to exist. Bracket law was abolished. The old Irish clan system was dismantled. The chieftains who had survived were absorbed into English legal structures or exiled. The O'Malley fleet was gone, scattered, captured or rotted at anchor. Grace outlived her first husband, her second husband, her eldest son, her political world, her legal framework and her empire. She did not outlive her reputation. Even English officials who despised her, who described her as monstrous, as unnatural, as a creature outside the proper order of things, could not stop writing about her. Their reports are full of her. She appeared in dispatches, in governors' letters, in state papers. She is everywhere in the archives of people trying to make her disappear. You can measure the size of a person by the effort it takes to silence them. Grace O'Malley died in 1603, the same year as Queen Elizabeth. There is something in that coincidence that feels almost designed, as if the era itself was closing, and would not close without taking both of them. We do not know the exact date of Grace's death. We do not know her burial place with certainty. We do not know her last words. The historical records which she had been haunted for 60 years simply goes quiet. But before it does, it tells us this. She was still commanding a fleet in her 60s. She was still negotiating, still fighting, still refusing. She never surrendered her territory. She never converted to the English legal system. She never stopped. The sea does not ask permission. Neither did she. Grace O'Malley was not rediscovered. She was never entirely lost. Stories of her circulated in corners for centuries. Passed down in Irish oral tradition, she appeared in street ballads and folk songs in the 18th and 19th centuries. Women who needed a name for courage borrowed hers. When Irish nationalism rose in the 19th century, Grace became a symbol. The woman who made the English queen as an equal, who commanded fleets, who refused to call herself conquered. Anne Chambers published the first serious biography in 1979. Interest has grown steadily since. But here is what history has never fully reckoned with. Grace O'Malley was not exceptional because she was a woman who did what men did. She was exceptional because she operated in a world that had specifically designed its rules to make her impossible, and she operated anyways. She did not do it by becoming a man. She did not do it by denying what she was. She did it by finding the cracks in the rules and failing through them. Every rule has its coastline. She knew every inch of it. Her name was Granuaile. She was not asked if she wanted to do remarkable. She simply was.